Assalamu alaikum. This is Morning Baraka. Fiqh, your questions answered. Assalamu alaikum. Sayyid Shah, how you doing?
Assalamu alaikum, sabah al khair.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
How's your day, morning going?
My morning, now I'm here, alhamdulillah. We've got a lovely grey London behind me, and mashallah, the best presenters on the channel.
Thank you for joining us.
Can't get any better than this, can it?
Thank you. So we have a question, so I'll read it out. I have met a potential spouse who is not from the same culture. He is more religious than me and has suggested we have a mutah to get to know one another better. I know there is a religious benefit to this, but isn't it just an excuse for him to be able to treat me like an easy come, easy go girlfriend? How can I explain this to my family, who are strong in their culture, where we do not do mutahs before marriage, but we do have engagements where we are free to meet? So this is a question from the UK. So,
Mashallah, very, very good question. When it comes to fiqh and ahkam, mutah is permissible. It is a form of marriage. This one has a time limit. Depending on the status of the lady, you may need to require permission from the elders.
When you say status, do you mean being middle class or upper class? When you say, could you elaborate when you say status, please say it.
When we mean status is meaning that has she had marital relations before? If she has had marital relations beforehand, then she is considered to be an independent lady where she doesn't require a guardian or permission.
Okay.
From
But
an elder.
what if, like, say, I think they use this term Rashida, if she hasn't been married but she's 30, lives in her own apartment, supports herself.
There are some scholars who do agree with this, that if she has reached, if she is financially independent, where she's paying for her own shelter, her own food, her own travel, then some do consider this lady also to be an independent lady and a lady that can actually give her own approval for mut'ah. Also, mut'ah can be done with a Muslim lady, it can be done with a Jewish lady, a Christian lady. However, a Muslim lady can only do mut'ah with a Muslim man. She's not allowed to go towards a Christian or a Jewish man.
So this sister is saying she knows there's a religious benefit, but then she's got this kind of doubt that it is an excuse for him to treat me like an easy come, easy go girlfriend. How can we reassure sisters that this is not something that it's it's for the protection of their well-being?
Indeed. I mean, let's be realistic here. Is that number one? The intention is there for marriage. So the purpose, I think, of mut'ah here in this case study is to remove those boundaries and those discomforts of you're my mahram, I'm not really allowed to open up to you properly, I feel a bit shy. Depending on how far they've gone into the relationship. Let's say if they've been talking for 6 months, 1 year, maybe they would like to spend some time together, maybe they want to go to a coffee shop, go to a cinema, something like that. If emotions are involved, maybe they want to hold hands or something like that. So, mut'ah is there for those purposes and those reasons, to remove any haram that may take place. Now, if you're talking about the girl's innocence being at jeopardy here, then yes, mut'ah does allow for certain conditions to be stipulated and agreed to, which the lady can actually put into the contract and into the agreement. As well as the mahar, she can also stipulate that, okay, there is to be no physical touching whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. I think it's so important that you emphasize that point, Said. You can't emphasize it enough, because I'm not one to want to police people's freedoms, right? And people are responsible for their own decisions. But and I know that women in general are intelligent beings that can, define themselves. But I just am aware that there are some brothers out there, not speaking about this gentleman in this condition, I cast no negative aspersion, but there are brothers that will use mut'ah or use it like a charlatan. It's like watch the hand, because really permanent marriage is on the horizon. The mut'ah is just a temporary measure to get us past this point. But really they got no intention of marrying that sister permanently, and it's just a facade for a wicked intention.
It is very, very important that we protect our sisters and we protect their innocence. This is why these conditions can be placed. And, I don't see, me personally, I don't have any daughters. But if there was a daughter or a lady, 21, 23, 25, she's met someone, she wants to get to know him a bit better, she wants to have a bit more, you could say intimate time, not intimate as in physical relations, but private, and where they're one-on-one discussing. Companionship.
Yeah. Building a bond. Yeah, courtship.
When you're courting, you need a bit of that private time for talking and getting to know one another. You know, Mutah is the perfect solution to this, to avoid any haram. For example, if they want to discuss certain things which may be a bit of a taboo, or maybe deemed inappropriate between two people who aren't married, Mutah will give them that platform for them to discuss. You know,
one of the things that you said about the intentions, sort of boys, young men saying that they misuse Mutah, could one of the preventions be, so although this lady's family don't agree because they have engagements where they're free to meet, but they don't have Mutah because that's cultural, this is obviously a religious foundation, but is one of the sort of protections for her the fact that her male members could be involved in the process of arranging that?
They should be involved. I think the word is chaperoning, which is done a lot, but even when the chaperoning going along, please give them their privacy. Sit on a table, a couple of tables away, so you can see what's going on.
So don't order a table for 3 at the restaurant.
Exactly. That is very, very intimidating.
Yeah.
Very, very uncomfortable as well. The brother may feel a bit intimidated to answer these in front of an elder gentleman. Exactly, a third party. So
but I think it's interesting because I think it depends. I know girls from different regions are, from where we come from, they maintain their innocence, in terms of not being exposed to men. So when you're talking about those scenarios, I remember there's a girl, young girl who was talking to a young man, the belief that it was marriage, and the male of family members of her family met this man, and she was quite naive with her approach to him, and they immediately sensed that he's not serious for marriage, and they were able to sort of, and maybe it's
flush
because men
out,
know,
so to speak.
men know men, women know women, and that kind of gives you that whether men get married and need the female perspective from their family members or the women are getting married, it does help though, doesn't it? So even if you're chaperoning on the first, maybe it's that input that you do need to kind of protect yourself from somebody that could perhaps ruin your reputation.
So you're saying first stage then?
Yeah, first stage.
Definitely. I mean, at the first, you have to earn that right to start, having meetings or by yourselves, or where this trust has been built. Normally, the case is when the families have also met one another. So it's not there's this random stranger that my daughter is going to meet. It's like, oh, I've met his parents, I know who he is. Also talking about the protection of innocence, and if there's a different agenda to why there's Mutah been happening, the conditions are there for you to put in that there's going to be none of this, none of that. Also the time length, it's not going to be easy come easy go if you're in a 6-month 1 year Mutah. That's not easy come easy go. That's proper investment of time and effort and emotion into a future which is to be a prosperous and pious
There is
marriage.
a question that comes to mind because the issue of engagement was brought up as well, and I'm just wondering, according to Jafri, is there a recognition of engagement? What I mean by that is when a man's proposed to a woman, or maybe vice versa, but would it be wrong for a third party to then propose to that woman because they are known to be engaged? They're not married, they're not muttered or nothing like that, but
I haven't come across this topic, as in, come across that you can actually propose to a lady that's already been engaged. Ethically speaking, it's actually quite rude.
That's what,
quite, it's a bit, harsh. However, I have seen circumstances in the community where these two were talking, and this proposal came along, and they just hit it off straight away, and it just went in that direction. I've seen that happen.
Okay.
Based on an istikhara as well. So there was a lady, all right. So we'll call her Mrs. Smith. So Mrs. Smith is talking to Mr. A, and they've been talking for a couple of months, and there's talk about something happening there. Now Mr. B's come along, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, and Mr. B have kind of like hit it off really well. They're really getting along. She does it istikhara, comes out really good, and she's going to marry Mr. B. So is there anything wrong with that? I think the main thing is that if you haven't promised or invested time and emotion, and you've kept yourself safe from that, because we don't want heartbreak. A lot of people unfortunately start investing their emotions a bit too early, And if it doesn't work out, it's very, very difficult to handle.
But what about him saying in the case where a man has proposed to a woman?
Already proposed.
He's bought a ring or not bought a ring, bought or whatever, but he's proposed. And she says yes, she's accepted, but they haven't, they've maybe even set a date and said,
But the aqd hasn't been read.
No,
the nikah hasn't been read.
No nikah of any form has been read, but just an acceptance.
If it comes to ahkam, technically they're not married.
Right.
There's been this comes under like contracting of word of mouth.
Yeah.
I've proposed something, you've accepted, or there's been a transaction verbally.
Yeah.
But nothing on paper.
Right.
So the question is, in terms of ahkam,
is it improper for a third party
that verbal agreement, does that stand or it doesn't stand?
Mm-hmm.
And can you walk away from that?
Yeah.
If a lady has said yes, I'll marry you, and then later on she's having second thoughts and says, actually no, I don't.
She's free to retract. I'm assuming at any time, just like the gentleman is.
Exactly.
He can retract his proposal.
She can retract. So there's not.
And say, give him a ring back as well.
Been definitely. The aqd has not been. By the way, ladies, when it comes to jewelry,
do not give it back.
Ahkam. If someone has given you jewelry and they ask for it back, you have to give it back. You have to give it back.
Allahu Akbar.
That's including your wedding jewelry. If you got married and you received wedding gifts that were jewelry sets.
That's a whole different topic.
I'll just point it out there for the ladies.
Yeah, because you could talk about
jewelry sets,
divorce, you could talk about, But I want to go back to this question, which is, so say that she comes from a family who do not...
She saved you.
Do not give the jewelry back. So the sister here is saying that the family are not religious. So someone in your position, a young girl comes to you and says that, this is a situation. Would you encourage to bring the family so that you're able to discuss and, sort of impart your knowledge on what Mutah is, what the protection would be for their daughter, and how it's Islamically favourable rather than going for the engagement side?
Indeed. I mean, it is very important that we do not mix culture and religion to an extent that culturally is accepted but religiously is not accepted, but we're going to go ahead. Or religiously it's accepted, but culturally it's not accepted, so we're not going to do it. I mean, Islam is there for the guidelines. You should, take advantage of what is halal, and you should refrain from haram. Now, Mut'ah is a halal practice, and I think that it is a situation where you should educate, introduce. Let's be real, the family are looking for the best interest of the girl, 100%. They're not against this girl trying to get married, trying to get to know someone for marriage. They're not against this, It's just the cycle or the actual process of getting married, and Mutah being involved in that. They may have some,
it's against
objections.
Their tradition, isn't it?
Mutah may be involved in that. I believe we have a caller on the line. Assalamu alaikum, caller.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidina, and good morning to everyone on the show. I had one particular question which I wanted to put through to the Sayyid regarding my work situation at the moment. So I'm currently working with a lot of youth, alhamdulillah, in the community, and there's this one particular youth who always has this question and approaches me regarding the subject of mut'ah. Would it be a good idea if I were to encourage him to seek the halal means of having a relationship with a Christian or non-Muslim? Currently, permanent marriage is not an option for him. Sayyidina, what can you advise?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very, very good question.
What say you, Sayyid? What say you?
I pray for the brother. Would we encourage mut'ah with the Ahl Kitab? Ahkam point of view, it is perfectly halal. The brother may require mut'ah to refrain from certain haram acts, whether they be self-pleasuring or be fornication or something like that. Mut'ah is a halal means. Not only does it protect you from the haram, but it gives you a bit of responsibility. Let's not forget that the male is responsible for his counterpart in the contract. He has to be providing for her, he has to spend time with her. If she stipulates certain things, that okay, I'll do mut'ah with you, but every Friday you have to take me out for dinner, or you have to we have to spend Sundays together, whatever, whether indoor or outdoor.
What if she put in that stipulation that I'm not returning your ring?
Then that has to be Adorn to.
Okay, carry on.
She saved you again. So yes, so you know we these are put into practice to help the brother become a bit more responsible,
Yes.
and not treat mut'ah as if it's some sort of, you know, self pleasure. I'm in, you know, I get my goodies and I go home and that's it. I don't need to worry about anything. It's mut'ah is not that. Mut'ah is a proper marriage, but there's a time limit to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people may say that the time limit is X amount of time. Some may say it is a time when this or that happens. For example, I do mut'ah with you, we get married, until I say the word talaq 3 times. Together, consecutively, one after the other. So he may say it tomorrow, he may say it in 10 weeks. So the time limit doesn't have to be specifically days, hours, months.
Okay.
It could be a situation. You know, I'm the mut'ah with you until there's a solar eclipse. Something like that. Whatever the time is stipulated, has to be, you know, accepted and adorned to. So why not, in that situation, extend the time limit, for the lady saying, extend the time limit so the intentions are clear. And based on ahkam rules, this brother may have to do mut'ah. Ideally, we do have hadith where mut'ah is discouraged in order for permanent marriage to take place. Why do mut'ah when you can do a permanent marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Why marry from the Ahl al-Kitab when our own sisters need to be married? And they need that man in their life for protection and for guidance and to stay away from haram and things like that. Why are you going towards mut'ah?
Well, why marry one or the other? Why not marry both?
If you have the capability, the capacity,
Inshallah.
and if she allows, because she may stipulate in her contract that no, you can't have a second or third marriage or a second or third wife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever is halal is halal. We shouldn't, you know, refrain from that.
Yeah.
And we should encourage people to do halal.
Thank you so much. I think we've come to the end of our time. So in terms of just quickly, I think last point to say, in terms of that, the young girl with the mut'ah option to really go down the route that Islam.
From an ahkam point of view, is definitely do the mut'ah. Educate your family so that they are familiar with the mut'ah, and they understand that the innocence will be protected, and they'll understand also the haram will be neglected, and will allow halal relations and halal contact and discussion to take place. And I would also stipulate that, look, there are conditions that can be put in place. Make sure you put those conditions in to protect yourself, to protect your reputation in the society, to protect your own self, your heart, your soul, and also, you know, give the brother the benefit of the doubt that his intentions are clear. And this can easily be done by extending the timeline of mut'ah to 6 months to 1 year. So it's not an easy come, easy go situation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Interesting topic. Inshallah, until next time.